Thanks very much, Dave, and welcome everybody. So what I'm going to do today is sort of go through a really quick intro to Alpha Anywhere, sort of showing some of the key features and the key concepts. What I'm not going to try to do is teach you how to use Alpha Anywhere. I'm just trying to give you a sort of a feel of what's there. So I'm going to be going through stuff pretty quickly. But of course, if you have any questions you want to stop me, feel free to stop me and ask questions. So what I'm going to do, start out by over here, is sort of just quickly give you an outline of what it is that I'm going to plan on covering today. So we're going to do an intro to Alpha Anywhere. We're going to explain basically that an Alpha app is just like any other web app, is a collection of pages, and pages can basically have either HTML or HTML and code that generates some HTML on it. But in the case of Alpha, the pages also contain something called components, which are reusable objects. And there are several different types of components in Alpha, but the most important components are the grid, the UX, and the tabbed UI. And I'm going to be showing those different components. I'm going to talk about how the Flying Start Genie can get you started really quickly building components that expose data from a SQL database. Then we're going to talk about the UX component in quite a bit of detail, because the UX component is by far the richest and most complete of the components in Alpha. And this is where most developers spend most of their time, is in the UX component. We're going to talk about how the UX component can have these controls called panels. And there are different types of panels: panel cards, panel navigators, panel layouts. And panels are important both for building nice modern user interfaces that have animations, but also for building mobile applications. The list control is sort of the most important of all the controls that you can put on a UX component, and we're going to be going into some detail on the list control. We're going to be talking about how you can build mobile applications with Alpha Anywhere, and this is both HTML5 applications and also native applications that are built with Cordova. So native applications are real mobile apps that are installed on your mobile device. There's an icon on the home screen of your device, and the native applications have access to all of the device features like the camera and the GPS and the file system and things like on-device SQLite databases, etc. We're going to be talking about reporting, and then finally we're going to be talking about deployment, which is how you actually run your Alpha Anywhere applications. And then the deployment options are either self-hosting or Alpha Cloud, which is publishing to the Alpha Cloud environment, which is running on AWS. So let's get started now. And finally, we'll talk about APIs and how you can both consume and also publish APIs. So when I say publish APIs, this is how you can create APIs in Alpha Anywhere that other programs can use to consume services that are made available by your Alpha Anywhere applications. And when you create APIs in Alpha, you can create both REST APIs and also GraphQL APIs. So let's get started now. Let's go back over to Alpha Anywhere. So here we are in the Alpha Anywhere. This is the so-called control panel, which is where all of the assets that you build when you're building a web application are contained. So let's start out by building using the Flying Start Genie to create a whole bunch of components to get started really quickly. So I'm going to go here and say new, and then I'm going to go there and choose the Flying Start Genie. So here up comes the Flying Start Genie, and then the first question the Genie wants to know is, what database am I using? So Alpha Anywhere has the ability to connect to pretty much any SQL backend database, and you can define connections to SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, etc., or any ODBC data source or any ADO.NET data source. So let's go ahead here and say define my connection string. So these are all of the connection strings that I've previously built. So if I wanted to go and build a new connection string, I could go and say edit save connection strings, and then say build a new connection string. And these are all of the different options that I have for building connection strings. But I'm going to go here and choose an existing connection string that I previously built. So I'm going to go here and choose, let's just go cancel out of this and then go select. And I'm going to go here and choose a connection string that I've previously built to a SQL Server version of Northwind. So I'll go ahead and click OK there. And then this next screen shows me all the tables in that SQL data source that I selected. So I can now go and choose which tables I want to build components for. I'll say I want the customer component, and I'll say that's has the customer ID as its primary key. And then I'll go over here and I'll choose, say, orders, and I'll choose order ID as the primary key. And then let's go here and choose, say, order details. So there's my order details, and I'll say that order ID is the primary key over there. So then I'll go next, and now we can basically go ahead and click on finish, and it'll actually build the components for me. So I'm going to just not do that. I'm going to just go to a Flying Start Genie that I previously created. So let's open this up here. So you can see if we run this now, we'll see that the Genie automatically created customers, orders, order details, employees, and categories, because that's what I selected. And if I open customers, it's going to open up the customer grid. And you can see here that the Genie knows that there's a relationship between customers and orders. So if I click on the plus here for ELF key, I'm going to see all of the orders for this particular customer. And it also knows that there's a relationship between orders and order details. So if I click on this plus here, I'm going to see all of the line items for that particular order. So the Flying Start Genie automatically created all of these components, and it automatically created the Tab UI, which is my menuing system, for me to actually go ahead and see the components. And if I go here into, say auto customers, this is the grid component that was built by the Flying Start Genie. So we can go here and we can see that it basically built a component using the SQL Server Northwind connection string. It basically built it used a table called customers. It automatically added all of these fields to the customer grid. It automatically added a search part, which has these fields in it as well. And it automatically added a detail view, which has these fields. So if we go and run this component by itself, we'll see here that we have a search part where we can go here and do searches. So I can go here and say contact title. I can go here and say manager, and then go ahead and then hit search. And you can see now we've done a search for all records that have manager in the contact title. So this was all done automatically by the Flying Start Genie. So next, what I'd like to do is talk about basically the UX component. So let's go now and create a brand new UX component. So I'll go there, and so when you create a new UX component, you can obviously choose any of the pre-built templates that we have, but I'm going to go here and create a blank UX component. And the UX component is, as I mentioned, sort of the most important building block for web applications. So when you build a UX component, you start out with an empty palette over here, and here on the left-hand side is your toolbox of all of the available controls. So you can go ahead here and click Add Control, and you can see here are all of my controls. So I'm going to go here and start out with a really simple UART component. I'll just put in, say, a text box. Well, actually, let's create multiple text boxes. I'll go here and type in, say, first name, last name, city, and state. And then go ahead now and then switch over to working preview so I can see my component running. So there we can see there are my fields. And right now I'm using a style sheet called Alpha Dark. So we can go to properties here and change our style sheet to, say, just Alpha, which would be a light theme. So if we run it now, we're using the light theme. You can also see that we have some animation going on here as we give focus to each control. But let's go and add some fancier animation. So we're going to go over to controls. Let's go to this first name field and change the label position from above to float above. So let's go take a look now at this first name field. Excuse me. So you can see there's first name, but when I give focus to it, there's this animation going on because we said float above. Now, if I wanted to go and change all of my controls to be float above, I can go there and then click on this paste option and then go and choose all of my controls. So now I've changed all of these to be float above. And now if I go ahead now and I run it, you can see all of my controls are now set to float above. So this is a very, very simple component, doesn't do very much. So let's now go and start adding things like panels, panel cards, panel navigators, etc. So I'm going to go ahead now and wrap these controls in something called a panel card. So here's my panel card. And essentially there are three different types of panels. There's something called a panel card, which on the surface basically is just a way of displaying content. So when I go and run this, you'll see it looks just like it looked before. I'm in a panel card, but let's go and turn on mobile preview. So now we basically are in a panel card previewing how it would look on a mobile device. This is a previewing an iPhone 4. Let's preview an iPhone 6 in horizontal mode, etc. Now you can see that controls are not going over to the full width of the screen. So let's go there and take these controls and change their width to 100% and then go back to working preview now. So there we can see each control is the full width of the screen. And if we switch to vertical mode, you can see they automatically adjust to vertical mode. So right now we just have a single panel card. Let's go and add a second panel card. So we'll go here to panel cards and we'll add a second panel card after this panel card. So now we have two panel cards and you can see we're immediately are being told that there's a layout error here that says that if you've got more than one panel card, you have to put your panel cards in either a panel layout or a panel navigator. So let's go and take these two panel cards and wrap them inside a panel navigator. So we have them inside a panel navigator. And right now the panel navigator is set to carousel mode. So let's go and take a look at this in working preview. So we'll go there. You can see now we've got our first panel card. And if I swipe to the right, there's our second panel card. Now this panel card currently has nothing on it. So let's go here and put, say, a button. I'll go to my list of favorites and then add a button. And I'll just go here and say, click me, and then go ahead and let's go and choose a appearance for the button. So we can choose the sub theme. So we'll refresh the list of available sub themes. And so here are all of the different sub themes that we can have. So we're going to choose, say, sub theme icon raised over there, and then go ahead and go over to working preview now. And if we scroll there, you can see there's my button, but this button currently doesn't do anything. So let's go and change this panel navigator from carousel to programmatic, which means that I can no longer swipe from side to side. You'll see that I can't swipe anymore. I have to basically use code to move from one panel to the other. So we're going to do that now. Let's go and add a button over here. And we'll go to this button and we'll say, go to panel 2. And then we'll go to this button and we'll have this button go, and we'll change the text to return to panel 1. And now when we write the code for this button, we can either write the code ourselves or we can use something called Action JavaScript. So Action JavaScript is where Alpha will write the code for you. So we want to basically do something when the user clicks on this button. So we're going to go to the click event handler, which I can get to by just double clicking, and then add an action. So there are a large number of predefined actions. So you can either choose one of the predefined actions or you can write your own code. Now, obviously, any code that you write in the UX component is what's called client-side code, and which means it runs on the client side, which is the browser, which means this code is JavaScript code. So we want to basically go to the second panel. So I'll go here and I'll type in panel. And so there's my panel actions, and then I'll choose what action I want. I want to set my active panel. And I want to set my active panel to panel card number 2, and I'd like to animate that transition. So I'm going to go ahead here and click OK, and then I'll leave that blank. And so we've just created an action here. We can edit this action at any time that we want, but we can also go here and say, show me the JavaScript that this action is going to execute. So this is the code that is behind this button, but I don't have to know anything about coding because it's all done for me by Action JavaScript. I can, of course, copy this code to the clipboard and reuse it in other places. So I'm going to go here, and then let's go over here and run this component and click this button. So you'll see now we've transitioned back to panel card number 2. But if I click this button, it's not doing anything. So we can go now to the second button and we can add an action. We can either go through Action JavaScript as we previously did, or we can switch to text mode where we can write our own JavaScript ourselves. So I'm going to go there and just paste this in and then change our target from panel card number 2 to panel card number 1. But you can see that Alpha is going to actually help me write this code, because if I right click on panel name there, it shows me a list of all of the available panel cards. So I'll choose panel card number 1. And here we go. So now we've got 2 buttons, one that basically is going to take me to panel card number 2, and one that's going to take me back to panel card number 1. So this button was built using Action JavaScript. I didn't have to write any code myself, whereas this button, I actually wrote the code myself, although actually what I did was I just pasted the code in by copying it from the first button and then making an adjustment to it. So this is sort of the basic concept between panels, of panel cards and panel navigators. So a panel navigator, as we mentioned, lets you navigate from one panel card to another panel card. But a panel layout allows you to see multiple panel layouts at once. So let's go to this here and convert this to a panel layout. So now we have a panel layout, and then inside this panel layout, we have 2 panel cards. We've got the first panel card and the second panel card. And you can see here that these panel cards are laid out in left to right, LTR, so that's left to right. So when we go and run this, we're going to see on the left-hand side, we're going to see our first panel, and on the right-hand side, we're going to see our second panel. But we can change the layout from left to right to, say, for example, right to left. And so now we're going to see the panel card 1 on the right over there, and then the second panel card on the left. Or we can change our layout from right to left to, say, top to bottom. And so now we're going to see panel card number 1 above panel card number 2, basically. So the panel layout and the panel navigator are containers for panel cards, and they allow you to basically either define the layout of your panels or else navigate from panel card to panel card. So let's go ahead here now and turn this back into a panel navigator. Now, another common thing that you'll see in mobile applications is panels have what's called headers and footers. So let's go to this panel card there and turn on a header. And we're going to put something inside the panel header here called the control bar. And so first let's run it. So we see there's our control bar. Panel card number 2 does not have a control bar, but we can take this panel header and move it up one level to the panel navigator. So now when we go over to the working preview, we'll see there's our panel header, and this is now a panel header that belongs to the navigator. So when I switch now to panel card number 2, the control bar is of course still there. Now the control bar itself can contain different objects on it. So let's go here and add an object to this control bar called, say, a title. And let's go here and define the text, and I'll call this my app. And then let's go and put this this object on the control bar. So we'll go there. We'll add a new layout. We'll call it layout number 1. And each layout has different sections, the before, a middle, and an after. So we'll go to the middle, we'll add a line here, and we'll go to the middle and we'll add our new object. So now if we run this, we're going to see at the center of the screen, we're going to see my title, my app. Now the control bar can have buttons, and it obviously typically does have buttons that control different aspects of your component, etc. So this is a very simple example of a UX component that has some panels. But let's go now and take a look at a real world example. So I'm going to go here and say create a new component, and I'm going to choose one of the pre-built components. So I'm going to go here and choose an Amazon lookalike shopping application. So we'll go there and we'll run this, go to properties, and we'll see that here's this component. You can see that it has a panel navigator and then several panel cards. So let's go ahead and run this now. So let's just go here and make it dirty, and then I'll save it as Amazon. So here's our Amazon lookalike app. You can see how we have a list control that is displaying data. When we click on a row in the list, we navigate to a different panel where we show details for that object, and then we can go here and we can add that object to our shopping cart. And now we've basically got this object added to our shopping cart. So now let's go back to add another object to our shopping cart. So this time we'll say we want a quantity of 3, and then we'll add it to our shopping cart. So now we have 2 items in our shopping cart. And this whole app, which you can see looks very much like a mobile app that you might see on a real device, is built with panel cards and panel navigators. And you can see it doesn't actually have that many controls in the UX Builder. But if we want to see the overall structure of this component, we can go here to Find, and we can see Explore Structure. And we can see that this component was built with a panel navigator. And then inside the panel navigator, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individual panel cards. And these panel cards over here, in this first one has a list of products. The second one basically has a detail view, etc. So this navigator, this Explore Structure here, lets you get a quick overview of the structure of your application. So as I mentioned, one of the most important controls in a UX component is the list control. So let's go take a look now at the list control in a little bit more detail. So we'll go here and we'll create a brand new component. And then we'll go to our add controls and we'll choose, say, a list control. So we've added a list control. We'll go here and say list 1. So there's our list control, but right now we haven't configured this list control. So we'll double click on it to open up the list builder. And the first thing that we can do is choose the data source for the list. So obviously the simplest data source is static data. So we'll go there and we'll say, yeah, we'll choose some sample data. There's some name and address information. So the first row are the column headings, and then there's the actual data. And then we'll go to the list layout and we'll say which columns we want in our list. So we'll go ahead and choose all of those columns and then go over to working preview. So there's our list with columnar data. So let's go now and do something a little bit more complex. So as we mentioned, the list can also be based on SQL data. So let's go now and choose SQL data, choose a connection string to our SQL database. So these are all of my previously built connection strings. So I'm going to go here and choose this demo connection string called Northwind. Then I'll go here and choose a table. So I'll choose, say, the customers table. I'll go there and choose which fields I want from the customer table. And I'll go here and choose my layout. So let's get rid of all of those existing columns and then choose these in my layout. And I'm also going to go here and add in a row number column. So I'll go there and add in a row number, and I'll move that to be the first column in the list. So go there and run this. So there's our list. And if we scroll to the end of the list, we see that there were 91 rows in this list. Now, in this case, this SQL table, this customer table has 91 rows, but in a real application, you might be connected to a SQL database that could potentially have millions of rows of data. So it's not practical to bring all million rows of data down into the list control. So in that case, you'd want to turn on pagination. So let's go back to this list here and switch from the customer list, which only has 90 rows, to say the order details list, which has several thousand rows, and I'll choose those rows. Then I'll go to my layout here and I'll get rid of those columns. And I'll choose those columns. And then I'm going to go back to my data source here and I'll say that I'd like to paginate this list. So I'll say it's paginated. Sorry, not paginated, which is, where's pagination? Pagination. And I'll say that there are, say, 10 rows of data per page. And my method for moving from one page of data to the next is going to be navigation buttons. And I'd like to actually build a navigation bar directly inside my list. So I'll go there and say my navigation bar, I'd like to have 6 buttons that I can use to navigate. And let's go ahead now and run this. So there's my list, and it's only showing basically one page of data, which has got 10 rows. And then here are my navigation buttons, so I can go next. And each time I press one of these buttons, we're navigating to a different row. So, so this list that I'm looking at right now has what's called a columnar layout, but there are different layouts that a list can have. So if we go to list properties here, we see that basically that currently we're using what's called a column layout, but we can also have something called a freeform layout, a Kanban layout, a custom layout, a map layout, a chart layout, and a calendar layout. So some of these layouts are not yet in the released version of the product, but they're coming up. I don't think that the calendar has been released officially yet. I don't think the chart has either, but they're coming soon. But some of the other layouts that I've described here are all available. So let's go now to this list and change it from a column layout to a freeform layout. So if we go now to freeform layouts, we can see that we basically get all of the fields in our list listed over here, and then we get a section where we can define the freeform layout. So the freeform layout is any HTML that you want. So you can create these very, very elaborate freeform layouts or you can choose predefined templates. So I'm going to go there and choose a predefined template and choose a layout that looks, say, for example, like, I don't know, like this. And then go and choose the different placeholders. So I'll say order ID goes there, and product ID goes there, and unit price goes there, and quantity goes in that placeholder. And let's put order ID again over there. So you can see that we've got some HTML layout there, and inside the layout, we've got our placeholders for the various fields. So if I go ahead now into working preview, the list that I previously created is now got a totally different layout. You can see there's my layout now, and the list looks totally different right now than it previously did when we were doing column layouts. So let's go now and look at some of the other different layout types. So I'm going to go here and look at, say, a list that uses a Kanban layout. So if I go here and I run this, and let's switch from the Kanban layout to the columnar layout. So this is the data in my list, but now I can look at that same list data using a Kanban layout. So a Kanban layout basically shows the rows in the list organized by category, and you can change the order of an item in the list, or you can move it from one category to the next. So this was done by going to the list control and saying that this list has multiple layouts, and that we have a columnar layout over here, and that we have a Kanban layout, and then we configured the Kanban layout by choosing which field in the data represents the category and which field represents the order. And then we, of course, went to our layout and we defined the layout of the Kanban screen over there. And we chose that from a template, basically. So there are the Kanban templates. So everything that I've done so far is no coding. It's just choosing from different templates. So that's the Kanban list. Let's go take a look at say, a map, a map list, for example. So if we go back to working preview here, and we switch to the default layout. So here's the rows of data in my list. But if I switch to the map view, you can see each row of data here, which has in it a latitude and longitude value, is going to be represented by a marker on the map. And if I move the marker to a different location, we'll see that the list goes dirty. If we look here at the detail view, you can see the little orange icon there indicating that this row has been edited. And then if I hit synchronize, then those edits are written back to the database now. So this was done by just going to this list again and specifying that we have multiple layouts. Let's go there and just go find has multiple layouts. We said yes, it has multiple layouts. And then we went over here and we defined, we have our first layout is default, which is columnar. And then our second layout is a map layout. And then we went to our map settings over here and we specified which columns in the map have the latitude value and the longitude value. So that was all done there automatically. And then you can see that because this list has multiple layouts, we added something called a list selector. So if we go look here, we see that we have a layout selector. So there's map, and we can switch from the map view to the detailed view, etc., by just using this list selector. And this list selector was added to this component by going to add controls and then going here and saying list list selector, and that was what we did in order to add this control, which lets us select different list layouts. So let's continue now, basically. So we've looked at columnar lists, freeform lists, Kanban lists, map lists. We haven't yet looked at calendar lists, and but I don't really have time to go into that right now. So and calendar lists have not yet been released. They'll be released in a couple of weeks' time. But if you want to get a preview of the calendar list, if you look in the pre-release notes, you can send an email to Alpha and request a special feature key. So let's go now and look at some of the other list features. So I'm going to go now to column actions. So let's go now and run this list. And we can see that basically we have in this list here, you can see that each list in the column header here, we have this little icon which opens up a drop down. And this drop down is modeled after Excel. So this is very similar to the drop down that you see in Excel. So if I want to go, for example, to the city drop down and say type in, say, London, and then I can go there and click filter. We've just now filtered the data on London, and if I can then go here and clear my selection, etc. So this was done by just going to the list and turning on column actions. So if we go there and say find has column actions, over there we turned column actions on, and we can then go and configure the settings for column actions. So again, no coding was required in order to do that. So let's go now and look at some other list features. So this particular list here has a feature where not only can I resize columns, but I can show and hide them, and I can also change the order. So let's say I'd like to make the city column the first column, so I can scroll down to city and then just move it up to the top. And so now city is the top column, or I can go there and hide the customer ID column. Let's go and hide a bunch of columns over there. And we can also see that this particular list has alternating row colors. So that was done by just going into the list, going over to list properties. And you can see there we have a section called alternating row colors. And then we can go and set the even color. So let's go and change that color to say green. And then let's go and change our odd color to say a yellow color over there. So now we've gone and changed our alternating row colors, and then go ahead now and preview this. And there's our list with different colors. And in order to enable the ability to resize columns, we just went into the list over there. We went to list layout, and you can see that each column in the layout there has a property called resizable, and we've turned that on. So I think that what we've done right now is given a pretty comprehensive overview of the list control, which, as I mentioned, is sort of the fundamental building block for many, many different applications. And not only basically can you define different data sources for the lists, but lists themselves can have a huge number of events. So if we click on list events, you can see that you can add events to all of these different places, like when the user clicks on a row, when the list is populated, etc. What you can also do with lists, which we haven't shown, is turn on in-place editing. So with in-place editing turned on, you can do edits in the list. So I can go to this list, for example, and say allow in-place editing, and then go to the layout and then go there and choose an in-place editing icon over there. So let's go there now and run this list. And what we'll see now is that if we click on this icon over there, we can now go and edit the data in the list. So let's go and make that a 2 and then save it. So we basically edited that value over there. So lists can be edited. So what I'd like to focus on next is reporting.
Actually, can I interrupt you one more time?
Yeah, sure.
So we have a quick question about this, and the question is in-place editing and the detail view, are those mutually exclusive, or can you have a layout which uses both?
No, you can do both basically.
Okay, great.
So the detail view is in fact how we initially said we will do editing for a list. But the detail view, but in order to sort of emulate everything that a grid has, we needed to add in-place editing. And in many cases, in-place editing is more convenient than a list with a detailed view. So let's just quickly go ahead and see how you build a list with a detailed view using a Genie. So I'm going to go here and say I want to create a new UX component. And I'll go there and I'll say list. But this time I'll say I want to create a single list control, and I'll use a Genie to set this up. So I'll go there and I'll choose my connection string. So I'll go there and choose my customer table. And I'll say what fields I want. I'll say contact name, and then city and country. And then I'll say that this list has a detail view, and that the detail view should have all of the fields in it. So now go ahead and click OK. And Alpha is going to build a component for me. And I'll just save it as list with detail view. And then I'm going to go ahead now and go into working preview. So you can see there's my list. Each time I click on a row, the detail view populates. Now, if I go to click on a row and then I go here and change this from Maria Anders, let's go here and change it to Fred Anders, and then go ahead and hit save. We'll see now that basically it says Fred Anders. There's a little orange icon there telling me that this list has been edited, but it hasn't yet been synchronized. So none of the changes that I've made have yet been pushed to the backend SQL database that this list is based on. So when I go ahead now and press the synchronize button, we'll see that the synchronize button goes disabled. The orange icon here has gone away, which means that this edit has been pushed back to the server. So the fact that we saw this little orange icon over there is very significant, because all of the lists that you build in Alpha are out of the box configured to be usable in mobile applications, in disconnected mobile applications. And in order to see that, what you can see I'm going to do here, I'm going to go to this list and I'm going to say that this list should be persisted to storage, which means that every time I make any edit to the list, the edits that I make will be persisted to either the local storage on the device or to the file system. Sorry, I want to do this one, not, and I'm going to go here and say persist to either local storage or the file system. And then if I go to properties over here, I want to go here and say that when we run this component, what we'd like to do is restore the list from, so I just need to go and find restore list somewhere. So I'll just go there and search for it. I'll turn that on now. So now what we can see, to simulate a disconnected application, we can see if we go now into working preview, and let's make a change this to Tom, and then go ahead and save it. We can see there's our dirty roads. The list has been edited. But now I'm going to exit the app and come back in, and we'll see that that my changes, my dirty changes, have been persisted. We haven't yet pushed it to the server. So I'm simulating a disconnected application. So all my changes are being stored now on the mobile device, waiting until I have a connection available to me. And then when I have my connection, I can hit the synchronize button and then push all of those changes back to the server. So I don't have to write any code at all to create a disconnected application. So let's actually go ahead now and see how we could turn this into a real-world mobile application. So I'm going to go now back to my list with detail view, and let's go to controls. Let's take these controls over here and wrap them in a panel card. So I'll go there and say panel card. And then what I probably would like to do, I'd probably like to put the detail view in its own panel card, and then when I tap on a row in the list, navigate from panel card number 1 to panel card number 2. So let me take these controls there, move them outside of panel card number 1, go here to panel card, and then add a panel card around these controls. So now I've got 2 panel cards, but I've got my layout error. So let's go here and specify that this should be in a panel navigator. So if we run this right now, we're going to see our list 1 inside panel card number 1, but we'll see that it's not consuming all the space in panel card number 1. So in a mobile app, it's pretty typical to say that this list is going to consume all of the space in panel card number 1. So we'll go ahead there and do this. So now we can see that basically we have our list consuming all the space in panel card number 1. But when we tap on a row here, we would like to go to the detail view. So let's go ahead now and go to list actions. We'll go here to the on click or the on select event. And I'm going to just go here and I can type in, I could use action JavaScript, but since it's a pretty trivial action, I'll just go here and say dialog.object.panel set active, and then I'll choose panel card number 2. So if we go ahead now and we save this, and then we run it, actually, and let's put on mobile preview so it looks more like a mobile app. And then let's just choose a bigger device, and then click on a row, and you can see we navigate over to the detail view. So this is a pretty typical mobile app pattern. But at this point, if we were to run this on a mobile phone, it would not be a native application. So let's go ahead now and then save this, and then go back to the control panel. And here we're going to say Cordova, and we'll say make an Android application, and we'll go ahead here and choose our app, which we just said. I forget what I called this. I think list with detail view. So list with detail view over. Go ahead and over there, and we'll just call it mobile 1, and then we'll say save it and save and launch. So this is going to now launch the Cordova Genie. We'll say that when the app has been built, we'd like to install it on our device, on our mobile phones. We'll go ahead here and say build app. And so again, I've written no code here right now. So Alpha now is using Android Studio to actually build the app. And if we look here, you can see here is my mobile phone being reflected on the screen. So as soon as this finishes building, it's going to launch, it's going to load the app on my mobile device. It's going to create an icon on the home screen here, and then the app will be running on my mobile device as a true native application. So this will take a couple more minutes. So while this is happening, I'm going to go off and start talking about, actually I can't do that until this finishes. Because Alpha is tied up right now. I can't, actually I can start another instance. Let's go here and start another instance of Alpha. So I'm going to leave the Cordova app building, and then I'm going to go back here and talk about reporting. So I'll go over here into web projects. I'll go back to the project that we're working on, which is called webinar, and then I'll go to this category here called reports, and I'm going to go here and create a new report. I'll use the SQL data source, and I'll use the quick report Genie, and I'll say I'd like to create an ad hoc data source using this connection string that I previously created called Northwind. I'll choose my table. I'll say I want the customer table, and then I'll say I want these fields from the customer table. So this is going to open up the Genie for me. I'll say I want all of the columns. I want a group by country, and I'd like to choose a style. I'd like to choose, say, this style with say olive borders. I'll go ahead and save this now as my report 2. I'll go ahead now and preview my report. So this is what my report looks like. And now what I'm going to do is go and create a component that I can use to print this report. So I'll go there and say create a new component. And I'm going to go now to buttons, and I'll say open report. And again, I'm going to use action JavaScript, so I don't have to write the code myself. I'll choose the open a report action. I'll choose the report that I just created, which was my report number 2. And then I'll say that when I open this report, I'd like to open it as an HTML report. So let's go ahead now and run this. So let's go here and save it. And so this is my UX to show report. So we'll go over to working preview here. So there's my button. Press the button. Oops, let's just see what did something happen there. My report said. Okay, so there's my report. It's printing as an HTML report over there. And now I can basically press this button to export this report to Excel. So I'll go ahead and press this button, and there's Excel opening up, showing my report over there. So not only have we created this report very quickly, but we've also basically have built into it the ability to export the report data to Excel or to PDF, etc. So let's go ahead now and press the PDF button. So the report is now being exported to PDF, and there's Adobe Acrobat. We can see we're in Adobe Acrobat now, looking at this report as a PDF file. So now what we've shown is how reports can be used to display as HTML. They can also be exported to Excel, and you can add buttons to your components to display reports. You can either display the report or you can email the report to somebody. So now I see that my mobile app has finished building. So there's my app running on my phone. So if I click on this button there, you can see we navigate over. And if we go to the home screen of this app, we'll see that it's a native app over here. I think I called it Mobile One. So there's the icon on the home screen of the app. And if we launch the app, basically we're going to get our list control over there. So what we've shown over here is how we took a UX component and built a true native application from that. So Dave, I see we're getting short on time right now. So there are some things that I haven't yet covered that I was hoping to cover, but should we just stop and take questions now, or should I just keep going?
Why don't you just keep going? So I've asked a couple of the questions as they've come up, and we can also answer them, after the show. So
okay. So what we've spoken about now is reporting. So obviously, once you've built an application, you need to deploy your application, and the deploying application means that you have an alpha server running behind the scenes that deploys that runs your applications. And for deployment, you can either do self-deployment, where you basically have your own servers in your own data center, and you license the Alpha server. It can either be the Alpha Classic server or the IIS server, which runs as a plugin for Microsoft's IIS server. Or you can deploy to Alpha Cloud, which is Alpha's own deployment environment running in AWS. Now, Alpha Cloud has a lot of advantages over self-deployment because you don't have to worry about spinning up servers. You don't have to worry about scaling servers. You don't have to worry about denial of service attacks. You don't have to worry about anything because the Alpha Cloud takes care of everything. So once you've built a component, you can just deploy it to Alpha Cloud really easily. So you can see that I've built a page here that contains a grid component, and if I run this page locally on my, okay, I already have that port in use. So I'm going to just go ahead now and I'm going to go here and do a live test of this page, and I'm going to do a live test to Alpha Cloud. So this would be publishing this page to Alpha Cloud. So I'll go ahead there and click OK. So this is now going to publish my component to Alpha Cloud. So what's going to happen, what's happening now is this Genie is automatically configuring servers for me on Alpha Cloud, and then it's spinning up those servers and then publishing my app to Alpha Cloud. So this will take about a minute or two, but it represents all of the work that you would have to do manually to spin up servers and then deploy to those servers. So while this is happening, let me just switch over to say a previously deployed application. So I'm going to just go ahead and take this this URL that I previously created, and then let's go over to my browser. So there's this application running on Alpha Cloud right now. So this is a simple grid component running on Alpha Cloud. And one of the really nice things about Alpha Cloud is that it makes it incredibly easy to do production and test deployments, and also as well as many deployments as you want. So in a real world development environment, you're going to test your components and your applications before you deploy them. So you can see if I go here and I type in /test, I've got my test version of my application. And then if I go back over here and I change this, get rid of that, and this is the production version of my application. And this is done really easily by going, it's it's still busy publishing, so it hasn't finished publishing. I'm going to just close this because we don't really need to watch this, and we can just cancel out of that. So let's go back now to my app. I'm going to get rid of this second instance that I was running over there. So if we go look at our profiles here, we have a publishing profile to Alpha Cloud that we've defined. And we're going to bring up the builder for this. So we're basically saying that we're publishing to an application called Webinar. And we have a deployment called test. We've got multiple deployments. We have a test deployment and a production deployment. And we've also specified that as soon as we publish, we'd like to also deploy. So in Alpha Cloud, publishing and deployment are two different actions. So publishing means simply copying your application files from your development machine to the Alpha server, and deployment actually means taking those files and copying them over to your active website. So right now I've got two deployments. I've got a test deployment and a production deployment. So what I've done is I've said that every time I publish an app, I'd like to publish immediately and do a new deployment to my test deployment over here. And then at any point in time, I can take my test deployment and move it over to production by going over here to Alpha Cloud and then going to deployments. And this is going to bring up my deployments dialog, where I can say I can take a test deployment and I can move it to production. So you can see here my website that I'm talking about right now is this webinar website. And right now I have two deployments, one called production and one called test. So my production deployment, if I go here, is using version 1 of my application and is using this build of Alpha Anywhere, whereas my test deployment is using version 3 of my application and is using this build of Alpha Anywhere. So one of the nice things about Alpha Cloud is that when you do a deployment, you can choose not only what version of your application you want to deploy, but you can also choose what version of the Alpha Anywhere server you want to use. So at any point in time, you can really easily take a deployment and switch to a different version of your application, maybe an older version, or a different version of the Alpha Anywhere server. So it gives you a great deal of flexibility in deploying your applications. So Alpha Cloud is, in my mind, is the preferred way of deploying applications, because you don't have to worry about running servers of your own and keeping servers up and running and worrying about scaling servers, etc. Alpha Cloud scales automatically, and Alpha Cloud automatically recovers. If there's anything in your app that causes a crash, Alpha Cloud will automatically restart all of your servers, so your application is always highly available. You can also choose in which physical location your application is deployed. It can either be US East, London, or Sydney, etc., so that your applications can be close to your customers. So the final thing that I want to talk about is how you can not only can you consume APIs in Alpha, but you can also expose APIs. So you can also create your own APIs in Alpha to expose the data in your applications. So let's go over here to web services and go here and now create a new web service. And I'm going to create a new REST web service to expose data. So we can either create an empty web service, or I'll create a web service that's going to expose data in my application. So I'll go there and say expose data, and I'll choose a connection string. So I'll choose my connection string over there. I'll say I'd like to expose data in the customer table, the orders table, and the order details table. I'd like to basically have my REST service let you do select, update, delete inserts, and also show the schema. So I'll go there and select all. I'll go there and say select all. I'll go there and say select all. And then I'll give it a service name. I'll call it my REST service. And so there's my service. And now let's say where I'd like to test it. I'll say right click on this and say test this service. So now we're testing the service. So let's go here. So this is the Swagger documentation for the service that I've just created. So let's go to customer select over there and do and then say try it out. And let's go there and say execute. So there's the data that we got back, and this is the curl command to access that REST API endpoint. So what we've just done over here is built a REST service that exposes the data in one of my databases, one of my SQL databases. So this is how you can build a REST service. But you can also build GraphQL services. So let's go ahead now and say new, and we'll say build a GraphQL service. Again, we'll choose, say, Northwind. We'll go there and pick our table. So we'll choose the customer table, the order table, and the order detail table. We'll save this as GraphQL1. So there's our GraphQL service, and let's go here and test it in working preview. So there's our this is our tester, and so here we'll go here and say query. So get customer, and we'd like to see, say, the customer ID. contact name, city, and country, and then go ahead and say execute. And so there's the data that we got back from our GraphQL service. So I think that's pretty much what I was planning on showing today. So what we've shown is basically, we've done this really quick tour where we've shown off the grid component, the UX component, we've shown how to build mobile apps, we've shown how you can use reporting, we've shown how you can publish your apps on Alpha Cloud, and we've shown how you can build REST API services as well. So Dave, are there any questions or?
That is fantastic. Yeah, a couple of quick questions. Just one has to do with the Alpha Cloud. And does Alpha Cloud run the standard version or the IIS version of the application server?
So Alpha Cloud runs the IIS version, and so in order to deploy to Alpha Cloud, you have to make sure that your app runs on IIS before you can do that. But it's pretty easy to do that. There are some differences between the classic server and IIS, but you can download and run the IIS server in test mode without having to purchase your own license. And then once you've done that, you can go to any app that you've built and then just go and say live test. And when you say live test, you can just say IIS, and you can test your application running under IIS. It's really easy to test on IIS before you do a live test on Alpha Cloud.
Well, that is it. There are a few sort of more detailed questions, but if they could, if you've asked a question we didn't get to, if you could send them to guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com, that would be terrific. So, and thank you very much for this presentation. It was great. We hope everyone enjoyed it. If you do have questions, again, you know the email address. And until then, we hope to see you at our next Wednesday webinar. Take care.
Great. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Bye-bye.